From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Tiger Cats Game Day with Courtney Stephen and Mike Daly.
Welcome back to another episode of Tiger Cats Game Day. I'm Courtney Stephen here, joined by Mike Daly. As always, Mike, it's Ticats, Montreal, a battle of second place in the East Division. These teams have mirrored records, 3-6 apiece. And today they're going to see who actually can step ahead in that very tight and increasingly interesting Eastern Division. How you feel about this one, man? Is this the game of the week?
Well, if you start looking at the playoff picture, it might be, right? Because if it's a battle for second right now, but game of the week, I don't know, maybe a little too early to be calling that. But
a little bit of a stretch.
Listen, the one thing that is cool with both these teams, we're kind of having, a slower start to the season, right? But now Montreal coming off that big win against Winnipeg in overtime, right? Which I'm sure gives them a bunch of confidence. And then the Ticats pulling one out last week against Toronto with really, for lack of a better term, a Band-Aid crew, right? So many people injured, and they come in, they're playing a bunch of new people at different positions, and they pull one out and actually looked really good doing so with, Newman coming in and running that third quarter package. So it's really interesting, this game leading up to it, because both teams have confidence for good reason, right? And now the battle for second in this East Division battle really means a lot more.
Absolutely. Man, this is going to be a good one, and the lineups will be a bit shaken up. As you mentioned, there was a Band-Aid crew put together, but this week it gets worse. Or does it get better? I think it gets more interesting. At the top of the roster, the top of the DMP list, Simone Lawrence is back on the 6th game. That's never a place that Tiger Cat faithful want to see number 21. But in spot duty, Kyle Wilson did outstanding for the 2 games that he did start, and he will be back in the lineup at will linebacker. Jamal Roll, who has been playing in that weak side corner spot, he is also out for this game, and the 2021 nominee for Rookie of the Year from the Ticats, Des Lawrence, is going to see his first action. Ciante Evans is out. Alden Darby back in. This defense is probably the most turnover that they've seen in the last year. Do you feel like these guys who are stepping in, but we all know they're good, they're all pros, but do you think it's going to take some time for them to warm up and get into game form? Des Lawrence hasn't seen the field really all year.
Yeah, he just came in on special teams for the one game, if we remember back in the early parts of the season. I think it's tough to get the communication part down. We've talked about this with the O-line, and I think the defensive back group is the same thing. I mean, Court, let me spin this question back onto you, because when you have 2 new guys, even though they've played before, there's little nuances of communication that need to go on. Can that get ironed out in that 1 week of, oh no, Jamal Roll and Ciante Evans are down? Or is it, make it a little simpler and just kind of worry about the communication as we go on? How would that work? And kind of, is that a huge deal, or is it not really a big deal?
Well, being that the defensive backfield is a place where you can have 25 straight perfect plays, and it's the one play you make a mistake that can often define your game, I think it is a big deal. But these guys have the benefit of Des Lawrence not being a rookie to the team. It's just his first week starting this season, so there would be some residual chemistry, if you will. I think the thing that people don't see that you might not experience unless you're on the field is those specific situations. Mike, you know what I'm talking about. If they bring 3 receivers close together and all of a sudden we have to communicate and determine, of these 3 guys, who's taking who? Are you taking the guy that goes deep, the guy who goes in, and I'll take the guy who goes out? Or is somebody just going to go walk up close and eliminate one of these guys, and the other 2 of us will play around? I think it depends on who's the personnel in the situation. So these are scenarios they've gone through over and over again during the week leading up to it. Definitely in the walkthrough day, they probably spent a few extra minutes ironing it out because different players have different skill sets, different preferences. And I think Montreal will look to take advantage of those potential lapses in communication because everybody knows that O-line, DBs, heavily communication-based position groups, and the way that you exploit them is forcing them to say one more word right before the snap. And right before the snap, we will see again. We like that transition? We will see Matt
nice.
Schultz. Matt Schultz under center for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. But interesting, QB1 Dane Evans will be QB3 on the depth chart. I'm sure Tiger Town faithful will be glad to see him there, holding the clipboard, but also wearing shoulder pads, ready to get in the action if duty calls. Another person in the matchup today that we haven't seen quite as much this year, Lamar Durant, the big body receiver. I think this lineup is a formidable one. The offense is getting it done by committee. Each week, different receivers getting in the mix, a different running back popping up. We saw 2 quarterbacks running the ball. We saw Don Jackson, and Sean Thomas Erlington was the one who actually punched it in. How does this offense attack Montreal? They get it done by hook or by crook. What is the strategy for Hamilton going into this one?
I think it's exactly what happened last week in the sense of we got to find what's working and just run the heck out of that and keep running until they can stop it. Because really when you look at this offense right now, it's whatever's got to be done, right? And you hear Coach O say it. I don't care what, you can't label us as a specific type of offense, a spread offense, a run offense. It's whatever that offense needs to be to win the game. And I think that's exactly what it is because you saw Schultz, he was able to move the ball downfield. He was able to try to find some big shots, right, early on. But he can also run around. And then when they brought Newman in there, he was just the same. He took over that third quarter. So I think they're going to have some packages in. But really, you have to rely on Stephen Dunbar and Tim White. I think those are going to be 2 guys that are going to need to help Schultz out while this, they kind of figure out their offense and Schultz gets into a rhythm throwing the ball. So I think those 2 guys you'll need to rely heavily on. And I don't want to see Lamar Durant have a breakout game because we know he's capable of it. And, maybe this week just because of the matchups is a good reason. But one thing I do want to bring up is, Court, when was the last time you've seen 9 D linemen dressing? Because the Ticats right now are rolling out there with 9 D linemen. Right, I'll tell you one thing. That special teams unit is going to be big. Number 2, those D linemen are going to be rested. So I think they're going to be getting after Trevor.
Absolutely. And this is a lineup of some athletic guys. I know if you're on that kickoff return unit for Montreal, you're going to be counting outside in, trying to find out who's your matchup. And chances are that person's wearing a triple extra large jersey. So I hope they bring their mouthpieces and strap up their chin straps. There's going to be some big collisions when you've got guys like Ted Laurent coming off of the bench fresh, Mason Bennett back from a couple little vacation. These guys are able to get in there and play with a high motor. And like you said, special teams has been a big area. So getting guys who are used to getting down in a 3-point stance and getting off the ball on that punt rush team or different scenarios where they can use their down-to-down skill sets on special teams, I think that it creates matchup problems. That's really what it does, because if you're filling in your special teams with smaller bodies, faster, shiftier guys, defensive backs, wide receivers, running backs, and they end up matched up against somebody who is just physically in a different weight class, then maybe that's something you could take advantage of. So I'm interested to see how Craig Butler deploys his guys and how they play to their strengths. Ticat fans, make sure that you remember to ride on our strength. From now until October 13th, you can purchase 4 eligible Hercules passenger or light truck tires to receive a $100 Ticats rewards card and be entered to win our road trip sweepstakes. Offer available at participating Active Green and Ross, Ontario locations, or visit HerculesTire.com/AGR rewards. Now let's talk about the Alouettes' strength. The Alouettes have really been a game managing, defensive, running the ball team. And I think Trevor Harris is the one who gets a lot of the credit. He's 7 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. They've got some superstars on defense that are emerging, I believe. I think it's more so that, I don't know what is the great thing about Montreal. They're a good team. They're the only team in the league that's beat Winnipeg, but there's no one person that stands out to me and has me shaking in my boots. Right? Last week, Eugene Lewis, who was their stud, 750 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. Last week, 2 catches, 8 yards. And they have Jake Weineke, who's probably their next best receiver, or Reggie White Jr., and these guys combined for 1 touchdown for the whole season. So I'm not exactly sure what is the thing about Montreal that makes them dangerous, but they play tough on defense, and they do really force people into late game situations where they have to be clutch. I mean, they played Winnipeg tough into an overtime game, and it was a missed field goal that ended up going in Montreal's favor that let them win. So given that the Ticats haven't really been lighting up the scoreboard, and Montreal's defense, they know how to get pressure on the quarterback and they know how to force mistakes, is this going to be more so the Ticats offense versus the Montreal defense? Or do you think that Montreal offense has the firepower to really make this one, exciting on the other side of the ball going up against the Ticats D?
Yeah, and it's funny you said that because, when I started researching this game to try to figure the teams out, right, and, dive into the numbers a little bit, I was exactly like you, where how is Montreal winning games? Because you start looking at it, right, and last time they played Hamilton, Eugene Lewis had a really good game. I think he was 8 catches for about 150 some odd yards, right? But when you look at the Montreal offense, you're exactly right. It's a game management offense, right? And you hear that all the time as football fans. But Trevor Harris is a game management quarterback at this time in his career. He's getting the ball out quick. He's reading it fast, putting it into receivers' hands, spreading the ball out so you're not sure where it's going most of the time. But it's not these big chunk plays. So I think what we have to see is it's going to be one of those, the Montreal offense against the Ticats defense, because what I want to see is that Ticats defense be able to make big impact plays, not just knock the ball down because they lead the league in knockdowns, right? But Court, you and I both know knockdowns half of them are just missed interceptions, right? And so we got to capitalize on the Ticats got to capitalize on some of those and make this game management or this offensive drive efficiency for the Montreal Alouettes slow down by negative plays, sacks, fumbles, interceptions. That's what's going to set up the Ticats offense in order to be successful like they were last game, right? Because I think, when you look at both these teams right now, with the Ticats having a bunch of injuries on offense, there needs to be some big plays from that defense to be able to help them out. And secondly, when I start looking at these two teams, the one matchup I'm so focused on, because they're number 1 and 2 in the league, is the return team of number 1 on the Ticats, Lawrence Woods. Number 2 on the Montreal Alouettes, the combo of Chandler Worthy and Tyson Philpott. Those are my matchups because when you look at it, they're both leading the league in punt return average, right? So when you look at the teams and you go, how are these guys winning games, right? How is this offense being able to put this together and score? Like, the numbers don't look great. You watch the game, it's kind of hit or miss, some 2 and outs. Well, the punt return and the special teams unit is really what's going to give those guys juice. So that's why I'm talking about defense trying to get a couple big negative plays for the Montreal offense, and then let's see the battle between the punt return teams, because that's a field position and that's what helps offenses do well.
And that's a great one. I think Philpott is somebody who we will be talking about more and more as his career goes on. He's shown that he could be explosive. He's finally started to come around in the receiving game as well. So whenever he's on the field, I think he's going to work his way into more defenses, prep, and they're going to have to scout him a little bit more as he puts more film out there. Of course, Chandler Worthy, explosive as always. He was nursing an injury during the week, but he will be in the lineup. Now, if you're the Ticats, I think right on cue, you got to put pressure on Trevor Harris and force a mistake. Now, Eugene Lewis, he didn't have a great game last week, but I think you're right. He is the thing that makes that offense go. He's the security blanket. He's the high point guy. He's the big play guy. Whenever they get across midfield, I expect them to put the ball up to 87 and just trust him to come down with it. It doesn't even have to really be a great throw just because he's so good at snatching the ball up out of the air. And for Montreal, the big thing for me is Mike Moore, defensive end. He's causing a lot of trouble. And we haven't been talking about the offensive line too much for the Tiger Cats lately because you know what? They've been playing really well. They've been moving people in the run game. They've been creating pockets. They've been getting all their different protections that they need to, whether it's rollout and they got to slide, or if it's drop back and they got to just straight up pass block, old school, make a pocket and give the quarterback a launch pad. They've been doing a great job. They have not been giving up sacks. And that was something at the beginning of the season that was completely opposite. But I think it's, to your point, the chemistry. They're getting a chance to develop chemistry. And I think Montreal's game plan is going to be, okay, who do we think, we being Montreal, who do we think is the one person on the Ticats offensive line that we can scheme to isolate and put Mike Moore on? I think he's been one of their best pass rushers as of late. And he does it with power and he does it with speed. The guy's relentless. Even if he's not getting a sack, he will be creating pressure. So this will be one of my key matchups to watch. Mike Moore versus the Ticats offensive line. If you're on the Ticats offense, are you starting out with the quick game and things to try and get that pass rush on their heels a little bit? You know you don't have time to get to the quarterback if the ball is out right away. Or do you just continue to kind of go with the deep ball, which the Ticats have been doing a lot better job of in the last couple of games?
Yeah, I think with Schultz back there, they try to get back to that lot of lateral movement like we had talked about earlier. Tons of lateral movement, get the ball out quick, a couple misdirection stuff, because with the D-line like the Montreal Alouettes have, right? And you're talking Mike Moore, but Nick Usher, Armando Sewell, like these guys are good. You know what I mean? That's probably what ends up helping that Montreal defense out more, is just because you don't end up seeing that work that the D-line is doing play in, play out. So I think you do a lot of misdirection stuff, a lot of lateral movement and quick passes, like you said, to slow that D-line down, because that's what's going to need to happen in order for them to win this game. But Ticat fans, remember, it's time to ride on our strength. From now until October 13th, purchase 4 eligible Hercules passenger or light truck tires to receive a $100 Ticat rewards card and to be entered to win our road trip sweepstakes. Available at participating Active Green and Ross Ontario locations, or visit herculestires.com/AGR rewards. Now, Court, let's move on to some trends for this game, right? We got battle for second, 2 big wins. How much does the momentum carry over for these teams? I mean, you've been in locker rooms where, the Ticats are probably thinking, listen, we beat Toronto, right? Everybody knows that we're pretty banged up. And then Montreal's locker room is saying, we just beat the undefeated Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Does that carry over at all in pro sports? Or is that one of those things where, people just say it, but really it's next game, next prep? Who do you think is going to benefit most from that, and what's that look like?
Well, it definitely does help the confidence when you're the only team in the league to beat the best team in the league. Winnipeg right now, on paper and in a lot of games, has shown that they are the best team of the 2022 season currently. And so Montreal, that's the most recent action they've had, is actually taking down Winnipeg. So I think that there's a lot there for confidence, and all confidence is just, it keeps you inside of your own game. meaning when you're on the opposite end of the spectrum, maybe you're pushing the envelope a little bit further. Maybe you're taking that one play that's, you know what, coach says I just need to do my job, but I don't trust the guy next to me to do his job, so I'm going to do my job and his job. I'm going to extend a little bit further and try to make something extreme happen because we need to make a change. Now, I think that's when you get into a little bit of a desperation mode. If you were a team that's been losing and you're in a pressure situation, you can try to play outside of yourself. But the best teams, they stay in their lane. They just do their job. And I think when you have the confidence to know that your current formula works, that's how those wins impact the next game. You don't actually carry over any of the points. The energy, yeah, it's there for a little bit, but it's more so a reassurance that you're doing the right thing. And I think that's priceless because this is a game of who makes the least mistakes, who's going to turn it over least, who's going to give up the least explosive plays, and the confidence to continue to, you know, chop wood, carry water, and do the same thing that you've been doing to get previous success. I think that's the benefit of having those wins. And so both these teams coming off wins, right? The Argos were taken down by the Ticats last week in what I think was their most complete game of the season. Ticats getting it done on all phases of the game. Now, Montreal coming off their probably most impressive win of the season. So we go back to when it was the first time that these two teams played each other. And the Ticats, they got that win 24-17. So here we're looking at a really good matchup. It might not be sparks flying, 50 points per team. I don't think that's what we see because both of these clubs are built around defense. But it's going to be who can turn the ball over, who can force the other offense into a mistake, and who can crack something open on special teams. What I would do, if I do go on a limb and I make a prediction, I think that we see an explosive missed field goal return in this game for two reasons. One, Montreal, they're going up against a team that has nine defensive linemen on dressing on special teams. Okay. So there's going to be some mismatches there, potential mismatches there in speed and size. If anybody is on the field at the wrong time and they take a long field goal and, you know, maybe there's one linebacker and a bunch of D linemen on the field, there's opportunity for somebody to get out of a lane and Philpott and Worthy, these guys can take it the distance. And on the other side, you know, Lawrence Woods has shown time and time again that all he needs is a crack of daylight to make nothing into something. So I think we're going to see explosions in the special teams game more so than in the offense versus defense game. Where are your matchups that you're looking at, or what are the trends that you've seen that you think will continue into this game?
So one thing that I was really happy with when I was watching the last game, and Ticat fans I know are just as happy, is the Ticats beat Toronto 17-3 in the fourth quarter. And when we talk about the point differential in the fourth quarter right over throughout the whole season, that's a huge, huge point. So to be able to keep that going, right? And that's just closing out games, right? That's getting the ball in the end zone. That's getting first downs, right? Not going 2 and out, not giving the ball up quickly, right? Like the Ticats have in the past. Finishing the game, and in the fourth quarter, really putting your foot on the gas, right? And that's what they were able to do last week. So that's what I'm really hoping will carry over into this game and kind of be a trend. But you're right. I think when you look at the trends as a whole, it just gives you this confidence. Like, for instance, in the Ticats locker room, it's like, hey, see, we can close these games out. Look at how efficiently we can move down the field in the third and fourth quarter and close these games out to not even make it close, right? And that's, I think, the confidence that they're going to have, where it's like once they get into that situation, this game where it's the third and fourth quarter, they can go, just let's keep going, right? It's as simple as that. Let's keep going. We know how to do this. We've been here before, right? So, Court,
hey, hold on. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you about this. Can we not overstate the impact that Seth Small has had on this Ticats team?
Yeah, he's been playing awesome, right? Like to come in there and be able to finish those finish those kicks, finish the drives, right? Make sure that points are going up. Because remember before we were talking about where, right now all they're doing is kicking a lot of field goals. Well, hey, at least they're making a lot of field goals. You know what I mean? Because that's still positive points on the board. But you're absolutely right. Seth Small to come in here and make his kicks. Now, to flip it, we just got to bring the punting game up the same route, right? Like, I think right now that's a huge dark spot on the Ticats special teams. It's like 10 yards difference per average punt on, you know what I mean, per team, per game. That's a huge amount of yardage, right? And we had talked about this before. That's a huge amount of yards. That's a first down every single play, especially when it's two teams close like this, battling for second, right, where the smallest amount of margin is going to win the game. That's got to be in a better spot for the Ticats, moving down from not only this game, but going into the season and then playoffs.
Right. So given these things, given the trends, given the lineups that we're going to see, given what's at stake here with these two second-place teams in the Eastern Division, that is becoming increasingly interesting to watch. Who are the key matchups that are going to determine which team takes the W today?
Yeah, and I'll go right back to what we had talked about. It's those returners. It's going to be Lawrence Woods versus Worthy and Tyson Philpott. That's going to be the biggest story because, like you had said, there's going to be an explosive return. There's going to be big-time returns, right? Being able to eliminate those returners, keep them at backed-up field position and win that field position battle over the course of 4 quarters, right? And not just the fourth quarter, over the course of the game, being able to be in positive field position. That's ultimately what's going to get you points. That's ultimately what's going to make the offense roll, right? And get the ball in the end zone and be able to close these games out. So I'm really looking for, the Ticats to really hone in on Chandler Worthy, Tyson Philpott, and make sure that those returns stay at a minimum and make the offense go a long field. How about you? What are you looking for?
Well, I know the running backs on the Tiger Cats haven't necessarily been putting up gaudy numbers. The best rushers have been QBs. But Don Jackson, we know what he's capable of. And I think in a game like this one, where Matt Schultz he's really been managing games great. He's not really stretching defenses. And it's a defensive team he's going up against. So I don't know how much that changes the vertical component of his attack. I think Don Jackson has to be a factor. And him, once he gets past that first level, it's really Micah Awe. It's the only thing stopping him from cranking out 10 yards a pop, right? So if Don J gets spinning early, I think that helps the Ticats immensely. And then when he's spelled by STE, that's magical. When you can have a Mr. Hurdle himself, he's going back to Quebec. All right.
Yeah.
Now, Sean Thomas Erlington in Montreal, people, if you don't know where this man came from, put on the college tape. He can make magic. We all know what he does. He levitates, he spins, he makes things happen. So I think if you give Sean Thomas Erlington, 5 full speed carries and 5 receptions, and you get Don Jackson another 15 touches, I think that's a recipe for potentially some explosive Ticat offense. Storyline of the game, do they protect Matt Schultz? Is Matt Schultz who we thought he was? I think he is. He's been in this league for about 5 seasons, spent 4 years in Montreal. This is a familiar place to him. He's been in tons of games. I think it's a chance for him to cement himself as one of the next quarterbacks in this league that's capable of getting it done. And we've seen guys like, for example, Nick Arbuckle. A couple of years ago, Bo Levi goes down. Nick Arbuckle steps into the limelight. He performs well and then goes on to get a shot to have his own team, quote unquote. Guys like, Zach Caleros. He's playing behind Ricky Ray for a long time. And then he gets it. Trevor Harris and Zach were on the same team playing behind Ricky Ray. So it's a common thing where you have to bide your time as a quarterback, wait, and then when you get your shot, it's what do you do with those opportunities. I think this is one of those opportunities for Matt Shills, see what he does with it. But it starts up front. Will they be able to protect him? Anything else that you'll be watching in this game?
I want to go back to what you said, just because you can't emphasize this point enough. It's about getting Trevor Harris uncomfortable, right? Like I said, he's a game manager. He's trying to get that ball out quick. He's trying to see things fast. So when he's uncomfortable back there, whether it's getting hits on, whether it's changing up the looks of the defense, and he's not able to get that ball out quick and he's got to hold on to it a little bit, that's where the Ticats' big plays on defense are going to happen. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they get him uncomfortable, if they get after him early, right, if they're switching up their looks on defense. And that'll ultimately determine how well he plays and how well he manages the game. So that's one thing I'm definitely going to be looking at.
All right, Ticats fans, you got the scoop here. It's a 4 p.m. kickoff in Montreal. The 3-6 Alouettes taking on the 3-6 Hamilton Tiger Cats. You can catch all the action right here on the Ticats audio network. It's going to be RJ and 83 Andy Fan2s on the call and pregame. You can get more of Mike Daly with Bubba O'Neill 1 hour leading up to the game. We appreciate you tuning in and listening with us. And until next time, have a great day.
It's game day and you're ready. So are we. Let us know your thoughts. Email us at gameday@ticats.ca. Courtney Stephen and Mike Daly are here every game day with their insights into today's game. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.